Ah, yes, the joys of spring. I get
We're pretty much into summer already out here, actually.
That makes sense.
Being that it's in the 70s and
Yeah,
Down south.
way down south
down here in the south.
in the Sutherlands.
But up north, just, it's still hovering around the 50s,
Oh, you know.
Oh yeah.
So there was talk of having a white Easter out there.
That makes sense, It happens every once in a while.
I mean, it still could. You never know. But yeah, a lot of the snow's already gone, and there's there's gonna be like some rain snow mix in a couple days, but that'll happen. It's still gonna be like up in the 40s and stuff. What the theory is, like, we had a bunch of like blizzards where it was just blowing snow, so that kind of thinned out what snow there was in the fields. So once the soil was exposed, it just made the air temperature go up because of the reflecting sunlight and all that. So it just sped things up a little bit. So yeah, just kind of enjoying the nice weather up here for once. So can't complain. It's been good. Got to celebrate the solemnity. I didn't go with the Meat Friday vigil dealio.
See, Father Dennis told us that we could. So
There
I
we
did.
go.
Straight from the rector's mouth. You don't disobey that.
And then this week for sure we have a Meat Friday because of the incarnation on the 25th.
The Annunciation.
Or Annunciation, yeah.
The incarnation is December 25th.
Oh, right. Yeah. But the Annunciation is on the 25th of March, so we'll have a Meat Friday.
Indeed.
And I did still manage to celebrate St. Joseph's Solemnity yesterday. We had a brunch over at the Newman Housing with some friends, and then I went and hung out with my brother all day yesterday. I had a bunch of meat and fish. So it was good stuff. Nathan, you were down in St. Cloud.
I was visiting my sister and her husband, and we arranged just a day visit with my cousin and her kids, and her now husband. Two of her kids happened to be my godchildren. Elaine and I share those two godchildren, so it was a kind of a godparents weekend kind of thing. And it was just really good to catch up with them. I hadn't seen them since the reunion in last summer, actually, because I missed out on Christmas because of sick.
Yeah.
And I would have anyway because of work. And then they showed up to my younger sister Rachel's baby shower, but I didn't go to that because I was busy with school.
That's not a thing for
and
dudes.
stuff. And yeah, I mean, I would have been welcome because they're not like that, but it's
traditionally a gal.
typically,
deal.
yeah, but it's like my aunts don't turn anybody away, really.
Fair enough.
But no, and besides, I was just busy anyway. I wouldn't have been able to drive the 3 hours down, 3 hours back in the weekend and
After
stuff.
Easter, I need to bother Chris about the Prager kegger we're going to do for the guys.
I mean, we've got a now thought out backyard.
I mean, Nick Sharapa did it, so we should probably be able to do it, right? Yeah, like Nathan said, we got the
Surely.
thought out backyard, and we can have
light
good
a
time.
fire even if it's still melty.
Yeah. Hopefully we can take full advantage of that this year. There's
Hopefully it won't be
we're
so
currently
dry.
working on seeing who of the Newmanites people we know around town are going to be around during the summer, and we're going to do a Bible study and bonfire this summer, hopefully, like once a week. So that should be a good time if we can get that going.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I wasn't told of this.
It's a fairly recent, like
It sounds like it would have been a recent development.
yeah, we had like floated the idea a couple times, but this is when we first, like Bryant and I first started telling people about it this weekend. So
Sure.
um,
Well, good to know
Mhm.
because I kind of live in the house, and so things going on at the house, it's helpful to know about.
yup, particularly social activities.
Indeed, because sometimes I want to be there for them, and sometimes I just want to go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Although hopefully you'll have a job where it's like you'll be getting up at usual times like the rest of us, right?
That would be ideal.
we'll see how that rolls out.
I would like a regular 9 to 5 because then I could wake up at 7 instead of 5.
7's a nice time to get up. It's like it's squarely morning. It's not like super early. It's not late. It's a good time.
Yeah, I mean, the current job I have, it's at UPS. It's like it's fine. It works with my school schedule because nobody's hosting classes at the butt crack of dawn. But it's also just kind of taking a toll on my social life because it turns out everybody in college is like, hey, want to do something at like the 11th hour? The 11th hour literally being 11 o'clock.
Very, very late at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I would like to have a regular sleep schedule that matches with other people with the ability to stay up late. Not that it'll change much. I've kind of always been this way. It's just been pushed to an extreme like an hour or two earlier.
I recommend it personally. It's kind of fun.
You recommend graduating, don't you?
Screaming.
Extreming. Yes. Because,
Exactly.
Yeah. Talking is a strong suit of mine, clearly.
Words.
The ability-
done 98 talkings, so clearly we must not be terrible at it.
Or, I mean,
Or is this not
how many
just-
people actually listen to
this
the full
is
talking?
this is talking number 98.
We're getting up
98.
there. 2 weeks from episode 100.
2 weeks, and we still haven't figured out what we're gonna do for
No.
it.
Not quite.
Because that's just kind of how we roll. It's very from the hip, as it were. So
You see, we're hip, we're cool.
yeah.
That's how that's defined, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Is
so
hip
how are
even
things
a
down
word
in-
people use nowadays?
Hip? Not really.
No, definitely not.
Not
Not
anymore.
seriously anyway.
No.
There's got to be at least 2 layers of irony on that
Yep.
for it to be making any
like
sense.
Can I
with
get
something-
that with a side of
Something that
irony?
the Zoomers would use.
Yeah. Of course, there aren't a lot of things that Zoomers say unironically these days.
That's a fair point.
I do feel like that's a generational attitude.
Because if everything's ironic, then nothing is. Well, whatever. How are things in seminary land besides the significantly warmer temperatures? I mean, even here it's pretty nice, but
It is. There are busy. There are many things going on all of the time, as I've said before. So that's nothing.
continues apace.
It continues pace.
Mhm.
I don't think we've had any exciting events as of late.
Not
Quickly
besides King
racking
of
my
Fat
brain
Tuesday.
here for anything interesting that has been happening.
I think King of Fat Tuesday was the last thing that I recall.
We had a scavenger hunt, seminary-wide scavenger hunt house challenge. So that was interesting. Each day of the week we had, like, one of the guys on the committee for house challenges came up with clues for where these tokens were hidden around the seminary. And he sent out the email at 8 o'clock. So, which is right when morning prayer starts. So
Nice.
if any were found before then, you know people were slacking on their prayer and looking at their phones. So
Yep.
yeah, it was
Can't
a
have
fun
that.
activity. My house took second place.
Nice.
So,
So-
we're second in the overall standings, and there's one challenge left to go. So if we get first and the House of John gets last, we win.
Nice. What
So
is the
that's what we're
reward
shooting
for the winning house?
But typically our MO is just don't be last,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which has garnered us a lot of points up to this point.
Because I mean, if you at least if nothing else take points, then you can just kind of slowly creep up on people who are being a little more risky with their pursuit of such things. So what is the reward for the winning house?
Fame and glory and the immortal house trophy that some guest broke as they were walking down the hallway. Because they have this giant glass, trophy thing that's, as I'm audibly demonstrating, like a foot and a half in
It's at least
diameter, the
audibly
cup.
this big.
It's audibly that big. And they had this just sitting on a shelf, no case or anything around it, just sitting on a shelf on the wall in a hallway that there are classrooms on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Yep. You could
Now
sort of
there's
expect
a
that
much
thing to
more
happen.
modest trophy, albeit still glass, sitting in its place.
There, I don't know if they still have it, but remember that display case at Newman that had all those like trophies and pictures and stuff in it, and among them was the spray painted gold toilet plunger. I never got an explanation for what that thing was. I don't know if it still exists. It might have been thrown away. I don't know.
Honestly, a thing like that at Newman
There's-
does not need explanation. It just that makes sense.
Yeah.
Back before there
It
was a bike
follows.
race, they had the toilet plunging competition.
Oh yes, of course.
And whoever won took home the golden plunger.
I mean, I suppose that's probably how the spaghetti feed tradition began as well. That's sort of the precursor to the plunging contest. Anyway,
Lovely.
speaking of plunging, we're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
What do we?
This week we're getting a little bit philosophical
Ooh.
for our second ever request on Groundhog Day.
In a world where one man will decide whether to pull a lever and kill one man, or not pull a lever and allow 5 people to die, find out in Philosophical.
Yeah, so this is, as I said, our second request that we've ever done.
Of
And I'm
the
doing this for
3 of us.
my buddy Felix.
Okay.
Oh, have we? We did Aquaman,
We did,
right?
Yeah.
That's
we
the
also
only-
did,
that was the only other
no,
one.
no,
right?
we did the Burton one. James was. We did.
Oh,
Corpse
yes, right.
Bride.
That's right. That's right.
The first
Corpse Bride,
non-faith request.
Wasn't
Corpse
Aquaman
Bride
also a
and
faith
Aquaman
request?
were both faith.
Yeah.
But at any
first
rate,
non-faith request? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
This is the other of the 2 listeners.
this is one of the other 2 of the listeners.
Exactly.
lovely.
Saying the other of the 2 listeners would imply that it's a literal 2. But anyway,
We won't.
shout out to
belabored that
Felix,
point.
my ministry buddy this semester.
Hey.
And he requested this like several months ago, and I am just now getting around.
We
to
are
doing
making good.
As
on
we do.
it. As we do.
That is our MO with this kind of thing.
We take our sweet time with these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's happening, and we're reviewing Felix's favorite movie ever.
Excellent.
So the plot of this movie is that the weatherman Phil Connors, who works at a Pittsburgh weather station, news station, is in charge of covering the events of Groundhog Day for his station. Hence the title of the film. Phil is kind of a self-centered guy. He thinks a lot of himself. He thinks that he is, a big-time talented weatherman, and that the big networks are looking to pick him up for their programs. So he's a little full of himself, and he's not very nice to basically anybody around him. And they're not exactly super resentful of that, because they just kind of get that's how he is. He's not mean, per se, most of the time.
Just kind of aloof.
Just kind of aloof. So, after he gets off the air, they have a little discussion about going out to Puxatawny for the festivities, and he's like, "Oh, I hate this stupid little town. It's
Not my
real
speed.
drag. I hate doing this segment every year, but it's an important Pennsylvania weather event, so I gotta be there." So he and the new producer Rita and their van driver, I forget his name off the top of my head, but they go. Oh, his name is Larry the cameraman.
Ah.
So they all head out to Punxsutawney and get their hotel rooms, and Phil stays at a cushy bed and breakfast, and Rita and Larry stay at a more simple motel or something to that effect. And so Phil goes out there, does the bit. He's pretty cynical and sarcastic about it, but he tapes the bit, and they get their footage, and they're like, let's go. So he'd predicted, there was some weather patterns that indicated there might be a blizzard coming, but he thought that the blizzard was gonna not hit them. It was gonna mix into some other precipitation, fall somewhere else. It wasn't gonna hit them there. Well, it turns out that he was wrong, as weathermen often are, and that the blizzard has hit in full force. Now, disclaimer for anyone from the Northlands, the amount of snow that they're showing coming out of this thing would never be enough to deter anyone who's actually from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Put that aside.
As far as like your average movie watcher,
I mean, this is made by people in Hollywood. If California gets a snowfall, everything
that's
falls
not
apart.
in the mountains
Right.
because they have mountains out in the.
We're talking Hollywood,
side,
LA
but-
type of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they closed down all the roads, and they're not going anywhere. So Phil is stuck in one of his least favorite places. He's just got to deal with it. And indeed, he is really stuck there. He wakes up at 6 a.m. the following day. The same song is playing that was playing yesterday. And they launch into their radio bit, and he's like, oh, come on, guys, you're playing yesterday's tape. What are you doing? So he starts getting ready for the day in the same manner he did yesterday. Goes out and runs into the same guy he ran into yesterday, and he says the exact same things. And Phil's like, what is going on? You guys playing me? He goes out to the breakfast dining room, and the lady there also says the exact same things that she said yesterday. And he's like, clearly people out here are just messing with me. Like, none of this. And also all the snow was gone when he woke up. There's a little bit on the ground, but the whole blizzard, quote unquote, all of that was gone. And so he's convinced us at this point that the whole town's out to get him, because they must have figured out that he doesn't like them or something. And so he runs through this entire day over and over. He realizes that, no, people aren't messing with him. He's just reliving the same day over and over. So he gets wise to this fact and, starts doing things for his own casual purposes. He's like, he gets drunk and goes driving around with some random guys from the town and, gets arrested and is just a real snarky jerk and does a lot of mean things. And he asks this one lady where she's from, what her high school English teacher was, in order to convince her that they knew each other and that they're going to rekindle a relationship or something. So he basically exploits the fact that he gets to relive the same day to do whatever he wants for a while. And he slowly starts to become unsatisfied with that. He just gets bored soon enough. There's nobody. He feels really empty, just, doing whatever he wants and never having to work for it. And he's kind of had an attraction to this producer lady, Rita, that he came down there with. So he turns his attention to her in order to get to know her a little bit better. And so over time, he plays through several loops and learns more and more about her. And one day he's getting, they get together and have one of their usual days, and she kind of figures out that, well, she gets suspicious. She's like, I don't know you at all, but you seem to know an incredible amount about me. And you know everything I like. You also like all of those things. Did you, call up my friend so you could prank me with this? Get out of here. You're obviously messing with me. So she gets wise to this fact. And this happens, over several iterations. He gets found out in different ways. So he finally gets to the point where he's totally dejected. He's convinced that he's never going to, get a relationship with Rita, and so he kills himself several times, knowing that he's just going to wake up again tomorrow. Same way he's always done forever. And he hits real rock bottom. And at that point, we're going to take a pause so Riley can drink a beverage. What are your initial thoughts so far?
Even though I haven't watched the entire movie, I'm pretty generally familiar with the concept of Groundhog's Day. So it's kind of playing out kind of how I expected, I suppose, based off of the little I knew. I've seen bits and pieces of it over years, but I've never had a chance to sit down and watch the whole thing.
I have not seen any of it aside from just hearing about it and kind of getting the gist of what it's about. But yeah, this is kind of the kind of story I expected.
The recurring day has since been redone in a variety of ways, so it's pretty familiar.
I mean, it must have been it had to have been a thing
The
that has happened before.
Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow was was one of the bigger ones with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, where it's like an alien battle or whatever, and
or Live Die Repeat, or
yeah. Well, that's like the subhead of that.
That movie went through several different title changes because of dumb stuff. I don't know why.
Huh. Anyway. But yeah.
Anyway. So, at this point, Phil's pretty desperate. And he goes to Rita genuinely to seek her advice and her help. And naturally, she's pretty dubious at first. And he's like, I get that you'd think that I'm trying to mess with you with this. That's perfectly understandable. So I'm going to make it clear beyond a shadow of a doubt that this really is happening to me. And so he goes through and tells her about every single person in the cafe that they're in, everything about them. And even though they don't know him in this iteration, they affirm everything he says. So she's like, oh, obviously, there's something to this. He's like, in about 5 seconds, they're going to drop a platter. This waiter is going to drop a platter of dishes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then it happens. And she's like, okay, that's conclusive enough for me. So what are we going to do about it? So they try to work out a plan, and he's like, maybe you should work on yourself a little bit. And so he realizes that he's got all this time. He's got infinite iterations of the same day. He can improve himself in order to, win Rita's trust and actually make himself a worthy person of her love. And so he does a lot of things, like he learns the piano by paying the piano professor $1,000 every day, which he gets back at the end, start of the next day, kicking out her previous student so that he can get lessons. He goes around helping everyone in the town with all of their problems every day, and gets to know everyone in town over the course of time, and finally gives some money to the beggar who he's been denying every day that he's gone through up to this point. So he's kind of turning it around. He's working on himself, improving his virtues. And so eventually it comes to the point that a day comes around and he's going through helping all kinds of people, and they're at a party in the evening where Rita walks in and sees Phil up there playing the piano with the jazz band playing music that night, and she's really impressed by his skill. And then he goes around and they have an auction where they auction off all of the bachelors in the place.
Uh-huh.
And he's up there, and there's these two ladies that he's gotten to know are betting on him. And then Rita's like, pulls out all the money in her wallet and is like, $300 whatever dollars. He's like, I don't think we can compete with that. You got him. So she's like, wow, you're really quite an amazing person. He's like, I wasn't always, had to work on me a little bit. She's like, well, I think that not very many people can astound me, but you've done it. And so they happily ride off into the sunset. He wakes up the next morning actually, I think it was a different song playing. I'm not sure about that detail. And then he wakes up and the snow is all still there. So he realizes that he's finally gotten the chance to have a new day. And there the movie ends.
There you go.
Interesting. It strikes me as a little bit of I think it probably takes some inspiration from A Christmas Carol in that, like, a man has sort of a interesting supernatural experience over a period of time that sort of forces him to face his flaws and overcome them in order to make it through the experience. So I imagine that was probably at least an inspiration for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But
I imagine.
But also something that kind of struck me about the story is that the cyclical nature of repeating the same day over and over again. It's like this guy has a lot of flaws, a lot of vices, a lot of problems in him, and if you let those kind of things like just go, if you let them rule you and just kind of let them go, you'll fall into a cycle, a very kind of bad cycle, and it takes work to improve yourself and get out of that cycle. You'll end up repeating all the same mistakes and all the same problems and going through all the same motions unless you put the real effort in to better yourself.
And moreover, it kind of drives you to this place of despair.
Right.
Yep.
Where you realize that by continuing to live this way, you're never going to get anywhere, and that
you're trapped in a
there's
cycle.
ultimately no meaning in it.
It's destructive to yourself, to your relationships, to everything.
And you're just kind of trapped in a cycle where it's like if you do the same things to indulge your appetites and indulge in your vices, then you're just basically living the same day over and over again, even if time passes as usual. It's sort of a waste of your life.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that at the end, he just sort of wants to break out. Well, it's more in the middle, but he just wants to break out of the cycle. He wants to be done with it. But whatever powers that be won't allow that, because there's a greater purpose in mind. And the thing that ultimately allows him to escape the loop is to genuinely care about another person enough that you go out of your way to improve yourself, to acquire virtues, and to
live in charity.
Yeah. I'm not positive that he reaches a place of genuine charity by the end of the movie.
But he's on the way.
He's at least well on his way. Like
he recognizes what was wrong about him and what needs improvement, at least.
To a certain degree, I think he's primarily motivated by his attraction to Rita more so than his genuine care about other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
an imperfect
start.
motivation, but yeah, it's a good start.
And that's not super clear, but that's my interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
I also think
at least it's a starting place.
I also think it's interesting that it's unclear how and why this thing happened, or who or what did impose this time loop on him. It's just kind of vague, and
it's not explained. And I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that makes it more
probably to the benefit of the,
because it's more of like a parable almost, or like sort of a morality tale, or like fable kind of a way where it's like you don't really need to know the mechanics of how this repeating day works.
All you need to know is the why.
Yeah,
it's about.
Yeah,
it's
you
about
do
the
learn
moral.
the why by the end of it. That
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of whatever force was behind this was to make him virtuous.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like you don't need. It doesn't get into like the nitty-gritty details of how the repeating day works, like that type of thing. It's unnecessary. Right. Like the point is, that he's keeps getting this chance to improve his life, and he finally manages to do that.
He wastes that opportunity to improve his life for the majority of the film.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end, he comes around to it.
Yep. And
I think he's He's a very relatable character in that.
Mhm.
Kind of sees himself as the protagonist of his own life and sort of
Everybody else is sort of an NPC in his world.
yeah, sort of, kind of. And by
Which
the
is
end
not
of it,
an
he's
uncommon...
at least reversed that. I don't know if reversed again is the right word for it, but he's at least changed his perspective to see that helping others has value.
Mhm.
There's
And
more people
even
in
if
the
it
world than
is-
just him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the only one that matters. And maybe finding someone that matters to him was the big thing that prompted him to make that change.
Mhm.
And also Rita just being who she is, a complex, nuanced, interesting person,
Mm-hmm.
is someone that won't just give in to your whims. You know, she's got her own goals and her own dreams and won't compromise those for you if you're a jerk and unwilling to put someone else's needs or cares or hopes before yours.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so she becomes someone worthy of pursuit to him because she has something that he wants. He wants someone with that kind of drive for life who wants to live life to the full and not just, get by day by day.
Which a lot of people can kind of get, even if it's not like indulging vices, it's easy to just kind of mechanically go through your life sometimes and like just operate purely out of habit and not really develop yourself with the opportunity that you have.
Yeah, and that also kind of sounds like something that he wants to become. Someone who does more than just go through the motions and live his life, going to the same stupid Groundhog Day recording every year, complaining about the same people doing the same things. He kind of wants to break out of his own cycle and be more like her in his pursuits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think one thing the film sort of lands on is, that sort of living out of charity and living for others is a way to kind of, it makes life so much more interesting because, people had so much variety and like complexity and nuance. Whereas if you just did the same thing every day, and I feel like we've all at some point in our lives run into that where we're just kind of doing the same thing every day. But then when you manage to break out of that and focus on others, it's refreshing.
And turns out people are actually like interesting and have depth when you sit down and listen to them instead of just treating them as background characters in your experience.
Yep.
And this
or instruments to get what you want.
right.
Yep. People who are worth something in their own right.
And over the course of these loops, he learns very intimately about everybody in the town and how their different experiences and their different lives led them to this point.
I suppose his character progression from the film is like nothing in this town matters to everyone in this town matters.
Mm-hmm.
Because, just
Exactly.
driving around, being crazy, just goofing around to, helping everybody he meets and learning about them and their lives and that sort of thing. So, I like, how like, the thing the film's known for, like the repeating day, it's a great sort of lens through which to view these lessons, I suppose, on life. It's it's more of a thought experiment than some wacky, like, I think that's what a lot of the modern takes on this format get wrong. I haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow, and from what I heard, it's a pretty good movie, but I've seen this done, like there's like this horror movie or whatever where this girl keeps dying every day.
Happy Death Day?
Happy Death Day or something like
I
that.
saw the trailers for that.
I think they kind of missed the point that Groundhog's Day did right.
Majora's Mask did a good job.
Yeah. It is.
ReZero did a good job.
Yeah. I
Which
suppose.
we will talk about someday, but when there's more of it out.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Any other?
Watch that then.
I think that about does it for cool things.
All
A
right.
lot of the cool things we've talked about bleed into truth, but
Yeah.
Right.
Should we get into that then?
I suppose we shall.
Alrighty. Truth. What are some truths we can find in Groundhog's Day?
Virtue is desirable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And comes through repetition and practice.
Like
it is
repetition.
habituated. It's not so much mere repetition as it is
No,
right.
but it's reinforced.
habituation.
Yeah,
As
habituation.
Dr. Lutz likes to say, the habits of judgment and action which allow you to... He's got the whole spiel
Mhm.
Yeah.
memorized down. But yeah, it's something that requires work, something that needs discipline, and that you have to grow over time. It's
And-
not...
And if
You
don't,
can't just will it, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
you've
Pursuit of
you've gotta have
virtue
the training.
requires living for others as well, not simply improving for your own sake to get what you want.
Right, because if it's
in terms of the theological virtues, that might be the case.
Sure.
In terms of the cardinal or purely human virtues, that's not so much the case.
Sure.
The virtues are human excellences. They are
Mhm.
qualities that make for a complete and excellent human being. And so vices are the inability or the lack of those excellences. And so we see at the beginning of the film where Phil he's a vicious person. He does not have the excellences that allow him to pursue what he wants. He doesn't have the capacity to go after what he truly desires because he doesn't even really know what he truly desires.
Mm-hmm.
He's never asked that question before.
He just
And
fixates on what
B-
he wants.
Right. He goes to what he merely wills and not what's the deepest desire of his heart. And so the virtues, as he acquires them, give him the ability to really go after what is really and truly good, what he really and truly desires. And he learns over time what those things are. 'Cause he doesn't know what's truly good until he's had the opportunity to seek it, to try to figure it out.
Mm.
And he eventually comes to learn that the time loop is a blessing rather than a curse. That
Right.
way, it enables him to learn that lesson.
It starts out as a blessing for vicious reasons, becomes a curse, and works its way back around to being a blessing.
Well, it's interesting that his
His name is Phil, and Punxsutawney
Because
Phil
Punxsutawney, yes, that's an oft
is also
yes.
the groundhog.
given joke about he's not the best weatherman in town. The groundhog is.
Mm-hmm. But there's something to like, and I suppose like because the whole thing with the groundhog or whatever, is like 6 more weeks of winter or whatever, and I feel like I'm trying to put my thumb on like the symbolism there with like the snow and stuff.
well, it's like I forget whether it's not if it sees its shadow and runs back in its hole, then it's 6 more weeks of winter.
I mean, it's
Right, so it's a repeat of what came before,
mm-hmm.
right? So I suppose that kind of is a symbolism.
Yeah,
Is or
nothing
or
like
it's-
super deep, just kind of a clever little thing they did.
Yeah.
It's about as deep as the snow is, which isn't very.
Which is about an inch.
Yeah, that's. It's a stereotype of people in this part of the world that we like to complain about how other people don't know what winter is. That I will not deny.
But
or
are we
contest.
wrong?
Yeah,
Tell you what, if you live in Arizona, you talk about how nobody else knows what summer is.
and fair enough. Anyhow, any other truths in Groundhog's Day? Talk
But,
about
it all kind of falls under that umbrella.
yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Goodness. What is good in Groundhog's Day? Seems to me Rita.
Rita is very good. She's got an idea of what she wants. She's not like dead certain, but she has dreams and aspirations, and is a complex person. And she's not one-dimensional. She's very interesting, unique, and so she becomes very desirable in a truly good way for Phil.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And her like in order for Phil to really be worthy of her, or not be worthy, but like in order for it to work, she has to reciprocate Phil's desire for him for things to truly work out.
Right.
Because it seems to me like he's just sort of chasing her somewhat selfishly at first, but then it's only when he's able to win her over that, that it really sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose
And
eventually, by the end of the
yeah.
film, Phil himself has become more of a good person.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
Sweet.
Yeah, by the end of it, Phil has really become good. He's become a force for good in his newfound community, and he's like, one of the very last lines is like, let's stay here forever. He's like, he's finally gotten to the point that he's really fallen in love with this town and the people in it because he spent so much time there, and that's where he grew to know Rita. So
Right, because at the beginning he wants nothing to do with it. He doesn't even want to go there in the first place.
Get this done as quickly as possible.
Go in,
and
get
out.
the money, get out. But
They come, they
life
eat, and
had
they
other
leave.
plans for
They
him.
come, they eat, and they leave. Anyway, Bug's Life. But yeah. Yeah, sort of like, not only forcing him to relive the same day, but also be stuck in that town that he hates in order to understand that there's more to it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, or should we move on to Beauty?
let's move on.
All right.
All right.
Bill Murray.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not
Also,
a terribly comedic film, actually, strangely enough.
I
Like,
suppose
there's its funny moments, but on the whole, it is kind of a more sober, reflective film.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting that sometimes like comedians can also play some of the best dramatic roles out there.
Yep.
That's the
Um,
interesting duality.
because I suppose they sort of understand like the depths of like the human psyche in some ways. Like they're able to
comedy
portray that.
comedy done right says something about the human experience,
Mm-hmm.
like any good art. And comedy is a way to approach some of the hardest questions and the most difficult things in life in a way that isn't crushing.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a person the ability to deal with something heavy
And beyond
without
a simple
having its weight
coping
break
mechanism,
you. Right.
there's more humanity in it than simply just a response to pain.
You see that with movies like Click by Adam Sandler. It's another one of those kind of things.
Right.
It's a comedy film, but it has a really powerful point to it. So,
I suppose, and it's like this film was from the 80s?
93.
Oh, 90s. Okay, early 90s. So I mean, it's about on par, like visually, from what I've seen of it anyway. But so like the cinematography and stuff is good from what I remember. So
Mm-hmm. It's nothing too complex.
no,
It's pretty grounded and
Grounded.
I knew you'd catch that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
yep.
Yeah, it's pretty down to earth, and it's
good
presentation.
performances and
So I haven't like seen the movie, but do they do a lot of like shots that are like repeated from the same angle as
Yeah,
to emphasize
definitely.
that same day thing?
The shot of him waking up is always done at the same angle. Sort of shoots at the alarm clock and then pans over to him in bed.
I bet we watched that Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy.
Yeah.
I think that like because that character in the movie is an NPC and then it does that. So I imagine that
So
was
that's
an
probably
homage.
similar to
It was probably an homage to Groundhog's Day because you see his alarm clock and then he wakes up every day.
I mean, seeing an alarm clock and waking up is a typical
right.
film trope of just people.
But the
starting
fact
to-
that like he's an NPC
yeah,
and he keeps
yeah.
respawning. Anyway. So yeah, any other things of beauty, or should we move on to Unity?
Unity.
Unity. I'm Rick James. Anyway, let's see what brings everything together.
I think the loop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
loop brings everything together.
the loop of the one day.
Well, because even though it's the same day over and over again, every day is a new beginning, a fresh start, and an opportunity, and that's ultimately what the lesson Phil learns throughout the film.
And it emphasizes the necessity of habituation in virtue. The
Right.
repetition of something gives you the ability to carry it out consistently.
Mm-hmm. So probably,
Whereas also the repetition of bad things, of vices, and of your
Habituates you
Habit-
towards doing bad.
it's
a very
destructive.
downward spiral to the point where he kills himself several
Downward
times.
spiral, downward
Downward
spiral,
spiral.
downward spiral.
You got to spiral upward,
Mm-hmm.
pierce the heavens and stuff.
Yeah, get after the moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose that about
It's-
covers it.
That about covers it.
that about covers it.
I'll have to completely watch it. It was one of those movies where, back in the days where people watched satellite or cable television. Well, people still watch cable anyway, but like I'd see like pieces of it, but never actually like sit and watch the whole movie. I'm gonna have to do that now.
I think there was we never owned it, but we borrowed it from the library a couple of times. But when we did, it was like, yeah, not yet, Nate.
It is a little longer, isn't it?
It's only an hour 40.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I think I remember the last time I tried to watch it, I was packing for a Focus conference, so I didn't really like sit and watch it. That's what happened.
Okay.
Anyway, unimportant. But
What is important is that you.
first of all, if that's all we have to say, thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and leave a rating to let us know what you think of the show. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papists, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes like this one, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. He didn't email us, but he requested it in the way that we've done the other requests.
Right.
So it's,
You know,
we'll allow it. We'll allow it.
you know
It's a
what would be
seminary
funny?
privilege.
What if we re-uploaded this next week?
There we go.
That would be a good April Fool's episode.
Just do it for episode 100. Just re-upload the same one.
Yep, same title, same number, and everything. I don't know what that would do to the feed, but
I
anyway.
don't think that would really work. I just think I thought it would be funny to bring up here.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
See ya.